In any classroom, medical emergencies may occur at any time. The special education teacher, particularly a teacher working with the severely and profoundly handicapped students, needs to be prepared to deal with these emergencies quickly, calmly, and efficiently. Any problem involving severe bleeding is not only life-threatening, but may lead to a classroom of panicky students.
And would you make up a story for us? Thank you, Curtis.
Miss Lucius! He's bleeding! Do something!
Anytime there is a problem with bleeding, there is an immediate need for the teacher to control the entire situation. The bleeding may be minor or it may be life-threatening. There may be only one frightened and injured student, or he may have a whole classroom of frightened and upset friends. All will look to you, the teacher, for help and support. With a little bit of pre-planning and some simple skill learning, you can do all of these things. The primary purpose of all first aid is to save life and secondarily to prevent further injury. You can do these things in the classroom. This brown paper grocery sack will assist you in doing this along with its contents. Inside of this grocery bag, which you should have prearranged in your room, should be a couple of dark-colored towels, a box of various size Band-Aids, and a small roll of paper tape. On the outside should be a red emergency card with your name on it. This card can be given to a student who is upset or who is able to assist you in an emergency situation so that they may take this card, go to another teacher, a teacher that is prearranged to come assist you with the problem or assist you with the classroom management. We use darkly colored towels in a bleeding situation so that the blood from the emergency does not frighten the students, upset the group, or further upset the injured individual. All problems with bleeding may be simply controlled by using a darkly colored towel and the simple skills that you have at your disposal at all times. If a child is injured, as Curtis was in the classroom, on his arm, the first technique is to apply direct pressure to the injured part. Simply take one of your darkly colored towels, wrap it around the site of the injury securely. Take your hand, place 4 fingers together, place it over the injured area, and apply good, direct, firm pressure. Direct pressure will control the vast majority of all bleeding problems. At the same time, you'll notice that I elevated Curtis's arm. Elevation and direct pressure will control 90% of all bleeding problems. Elevation raises the area of injury above the level of the heart. Thereby, you are using gravity to assist you in controlling the bleeding. The same is true on any injury of the lower limb, either on the foot, the ankle, or the leg. Again, take your darkly colored towel, wrap it around the site of the injury, put your 4 fingers closely together to get the widest base of support to control the bleeding, apply direct pressure and elevation to control bleeding from the lower extremities as well as from the upper extremities. There may be times when direct pressure and elevation are not enough. In 90% of all bleeding problems, they will be sufficient to control the bleeding. In those rare instances when they are not sufficient to control the bleeding, you need to know how to apply a pressure point to control the bleeding. A pressure point is simply taking your 4 fingers again, placing them against an artery and compressing that artery tightly against a bone. In the case of an upper arm, you would take your forefingers, place them inside of the arm, very close to the armpit. When you do this, you will be able to feel the pulse inside of the arm. Then you would tightly squeeze. This compresses the flow of blood, and if the injury would be here, you would be able to shut off the flow of blood at this point. You have also sent for aid at this point. Applying a tourniquet in a classroom situation is not a wise idea. Controlling the situation with direct pressure, elevation, and a pressure point is much more vital. You can also use pressure points anywhere on the leg. Anywhere there is bleeding down the leg, you may control the pressure point by applying pressure at the break of the crotch. Right where the leg attaches to the hip, the major artery going to the leg descends. Take the heel part of your hand, place it directly into the break of the crotch, and lean forward. When you lean forward, you're using the weight of your body to mash that artery against the bones of the hip. This controls the bleeding down the leg. You will not tire doing this. If you try to reach off from the side and use your fingers, your hand and your arm will get very tired. But if you use the heel of your hand, place it directly into the crotch, and roll in with your shoulder, you've balanced your weight. The person's bleeding is controlled, and you still have an extra hand to continue to use your direct pressure at the site of the injury. To repeat, direct pressure and elevation will control 90% of all bleeding. Direct pressure should be applied at the site of injury using forefingers tightly held together, elevating the point of injury. In the event that direct pressure and elevation are not sufficient, you may use pressure points, first of all, inside of the arm, just below the armpit. For injuries of the leg, with the ball of the hand placed directly in the break of the crotch, leaning forward. These simple techniques will allow you to control all forms of bleeding problems that you will have in most classroom situations. Now let's see if Miss Lucius can handle the bleeding problem with Curtis in her classroom.
Miss Lucius, he's bleeding. Do something.
Kate, get the emergency bag. Curtis, let me have your arm, and I'm going to make it feel much better. Take this to Mrs. Merrick, please. I'm going to take this towel and wrap it around your arm, and hold your arm up, and then squeeze it a little bit, and that'll make it feel better. Okay? How's that? Is that better? Okay.
The second most life-threatening situation deals with breathing problems. When a person stops breathing or has their air passage blocked so that no air may enter the lungs, the brain does not receive adequate oxygen. The person's life may be in danger within 3 to 5 minutes. Quick action is absolutely necessary.
Okay. Now, what is that on the plate in front of you? Orange. Very good. And Kathy, can you tell me what color this is? Kathy, what color is this? Orange. That's right. Very good. Now, could you tell me what that tastes like?
Anytime a person has their air passage plugged with food or any other object, you are dealing with a very frightened individual. Choking problems in the past have been often confused with heart attacks. There are some very important distinguishing factors between choking and heart attacks. First of all, a person who is choking is a panic-stricken individual. They frequently clutch at their clothing, they grab at their throat, they're terrified because they cannot breathe. A heart attack victim, on the other hand, tries to be as still as possible because of the massive pain in their chest. The second identifying factor deals with the fact that a choking person has no ability to make noise. Whatever is plugging their air passage is lodged just above their vocal cords. Therefore, there is no air to make noise with. A person having a heart attack, on the other hand, frequently moans or can talk to you. The third identifying factor is that a choking person, if you put your hand in front of their mouth and nose, is not making any air exchange. No air is going back and forth when they try to breathe. A heart attack victim, on the other hand, in most situations, is breathing. You can tell the difference between these two. You can deal with them. The technique is called the Heimlich maneuver, which I'm about to show you. It is easy, it's quick, and it's very effective in popping out a piece of food or any other object plugging an air passage. First of all, approach your victim from behind them. Take your arms and go underneath their arms. If you try to go around their arms, you're not going to be able to compress their chest adequately to pop out the food. The idea is to take your fist and make a tight ball. Whenever you do, take your other hand and feel for the pit of their stomach and the bottom of their rib cage. Place the hand that you've made a tight fist with right in the middle of their abdomen, just below the rib cage. Take your other hand, place it on top. You are now firmly around this individual. The next thing is to lean them forward slightly. When you lean them forward, you are being able to compress your body against their body. The next step is to pull upwards into their abdomen as tightly as you can, quickly and sharply. This compresses the air that remains in their chest, causing it to force out the object. It would look simply like this. You approach the person, feel, put your fist right there, cover them, and pop out. A quick upward thrust in almost all situations, done once or twice, will take care of the situation. Now, you can remove an object blocking an air passage using the Heimlich maneuver. Remember, you watch for 3 identifying signs for a person who's choking. They're a panic-stricken individual, frequently grasping at their throat or their clothing. They can make no sounds, and they're having no air exchange from their mouth and nose. This is a simple, easy procedure that you can do in the classroom or any other location where one of your students may be choking. Now let's see if Miss Lucius can do a Heimlich maneuver in her classroom.
Kathy, could you tell me what it tastes like? Don't fight, Kathy. Don't fight. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. Sit down. Susan. Thanks.
In the event a student does not start breathing spontaneously following the Heimlich maneuver, or for any reason has had an electrical shock or any other sudden jolt to their respiratory system, they may not breathe spontaneously. This requires mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to start them breathing again. This is required to save their life. I will demonstrate a simple way to practice doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation that you will use in your practice session. You will do this without actually making mouth-to-mouth contact with your partner. This is a simple way to practice. It allows you to concentrate on the steps to follow to actually do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. When you find a person who has stopped breathing, first of all, get down beside them. You need to be close to that person. Make sure that they are positioned flat on their back. The first step is to make sure that they are in proper position. Next, you want to straighten their head and clear their airway. I would lift up on the back of her neck, tilt her head to the side, open her jaw to make sure that there is no mucus, no food particle, no object of any sort in her mouth. Once I've cleared out her air passage, I lift up on the back of her neck and tilt on her forehead. This straightens her air passage. It makes her mouth, her throat, and her chest in a nice straight line so that the air may follow a nice straight path without being blocked. I then tilt her jaw and raise it. I jut the jaw so that we have the maximum amount of space to blow air into her. This also raises her tongue away from the back of her throat when you jut the jaw. I then place my hand back under her neck, and with the hand that's tilting her forehead, I pinch the nostrils. This makes it sure that you are not allowing the air to escape through her nose that you're trying to force into her lungs. Next, I take a very deep breath that allows me to breathe myself, have sufficient oxygen to survive, and enough to blow into her to help support her life. When I follow taking my deep breath, I will reach down, make a tight seal with my lips around her lips. This tight seal ensures that all the air is being forced into her lungs. Pinch nostrils, the head is tilted, I take a deep breath, I lean forward. When I blew into her mouth, you could see her chest rise and then fall. This is how you will time yourself. When the person's chest rises and falls. You should be able to do this once every 5 seconds to allow the person to receive 12 assisted breaths per minute. Don't go too fast or you will become dizzy. Now I will show you in a completed action how this would look over several assisted breaths in a practice session. This allows the person who is not breathing to receive adequate oxygen to support their life. You are breathing slowly enough that you do not become dizzy and have problems giving them continued assisted breathing over a long period of time. It is a quick, natural, easy way to restore life and breathing to another individual. To review, first of all, you must make sure the victim is lying flat. Next, you must tilt their head, open their jaw, make sure that their airway is clear. You tilt their head back, lift up on the back of the neck, tilt the forehead to straighten the airway to make sure that you have proper alignment so that the air will in fact go into their lungs. Next, you jut the jaw, opening the mouth as much as possible, thereby pulling the tongue away from the back of the throat. With a hand on the forehead, you pinch their nostrils so that you have a closed airway from the nose. You take a deep breath yourself, make a tight seal around their mouth with your mouth, and blow, watching for the chest to rise and fall. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation is another life-saving measure that is quick, easy, and natural to do if you know the proper steps. You can do this in the classroom, in a lunchroom, in a school bus, on a playground, wherever an individual needs assisted breathing. Now you will have time to practice this with an assigned partner. Although over 80% of all individuals having seizure disorders have their seizures totally controlled with medication, there is the chance that you may need to deal with a seizure in the classroom. Many people feel very uncomfortable about their ability to deal effectively with a seizure. The key to overcoming this fear is having confidence in a method you can quickly learn and easily use. A seizure is a spontaneous, uncontrolled discharge of electrical activity from the gray matter of the central nervous system, particularly of the cerebral cortex. Many individuals have compared this to an electrical storm spreading across the surface of the brain, causing all of the muscles of the body to contract and respond to stimulation at the same time. When a person has a seizure, they are not in control of their movements or their actions. They are not conscious. When you find a person who is having a seizure, your job is to protect them from further injury. This is how a person's life is in danger, not from the seizure itself, but from the things that may happen to them while they're having the seizure. When you find someone who is having a seizure, your first duty is to remove any dangerous objects around them. In a classroom, that might mean a chair, a desk, any object that would be near them that they could strike or run into while they're having the seizure activity, something they might catch their feet or their legs on. Next, you want to turn the person to open their airway and to protect them. To turn a person, grasp them by one arm and by the leg and roll them over. At the same time you are turning them, simultaneous to the turn, you raise their head and put your foot underneath their head. This protects their head from banging against the floor during their uncontrolled movements. It also raises the level of their neck and their throat along with their chest so that they have a straight airway. Now when I got down, I used the leg that is closest to Rafe's body so that I am protected as well as protecting him, and my hands are free. I'm protected because during his uncontrolled movements, his arm may come back this way. When his arm comes back this way, I want it to strike my thigh or my hip rather than in my chest or any other vulnerable part of my body, such as would be open if I use my other leg. So I have him turned, I have him positioned, I am protected. One of the things I do not do is that I do not try to restrict the movements of his arms or legs. Never try to hold a person down while they're having a seizure. They must go through the movements of the seizure on their own. Nothing you do in the way of holding them down will make the seizure last any less time or be able to control it in any way. Next, I take my hand, tilt his forehead back slightly, take my other hand and put it right in the crease of the chin. This will allow me to part the lips slightly, so that while he's having the seizure, if there's anything in his mouth, or if he were to vomit during having the seizure, the contents would come out on the floor rather than be sucked back into his airway. This dangerous problem medically is called aspiration. Aspiration is one of the more dangerous aspects of having a seizure. When you have the person turned, you're self-protected, and their airway open as much as possible, then you are doing as much as you can to prevent aspiration. At the same time I'm doing all of these things, I should look at a clock, the closest clock or my wristwatch, whatever is available, to be aware of when the seizure started. Otherwise, you may estimate that the seizure lasted much longer than it really did. Being down on the floor beside an individual having a seizure can be uncomfortable, and because you're uncomfortable, And because other students in the classroom may be uncomfortable because of the activity, you would overestimate how long the seizure in fact lasted. You could estimate that it lasted 15 or 20 minutes when it in fact only lasted 5 minutes. As you report this to medical authorities, it is important to know how long in fact the seizure lasted. These are some few simple ways of controlling seizure activity. Now I'm going to let Rafe demonstrate to you a person who is actually having a seizure. I will show you the steps to take without breaking the action. Thank you. You can do these simple things. You can take a person who's having a seizure, remove any dangerous objects around them. You can simply turn the person, even though they may be a little bit large. You can place their head on your foot to protect their head. Whenever you get down, you can protect yourself from any involuntary movements that they may have. There is no need for you in any way to try to hold their arms or legs down. By using your hands, one on their forehead, one at the crease of the chin, you can maintain a patent or an open airway and assist them so that they do not aspirate anything in their mouth down into their lungs. You would observe the time that the seizure occurred, the time that the seizure is through. You would stay with the person the entire time. This is a simple technique. It requires no props. It requires placing nothing in the individual's mouth. It is something you can do in a classroom, in a lunchroom, on a playground, on a bus, wherever an individual in your class has a seizure. You can do these things. It is simple, although the first time you may do it, it may be frightening. Now let's see if Miss Lucius can handle this typical kind of problem in her classroom.
Curtis, get the tag, please, and take it to Mrs. Merritt.
Situations may occur where there seems to be a threat to the safety of a student, the teacher, or other students in the classroom. The main objective when dealing with dangerous behavior is to prevent any form of injury and to retain control of the group.
Do you want to try it now? Kate, you try drawing it right there on the board. Very nice. Oh, that's good. That's real good. That's it? Very nice. Kate, stop. Kate, no, stop. That's all right. That's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Okay? take your puppet and look up the story, and we'll bring it back, and we'll all sit and listen, okay?
Oh, Miss Lucius, I'm so sorry to interrupt
Yes,
your
ma'am.
class.
Mrs. Case?
Yes,
Yes.
Kate's mother.
Yes.
And my little darling forgot her medication this morning, and she has to have it.
Uh-huh.
Now, there are 3 in here. There's a yellow one, and a blue-striped one, and a pink one. She gets the yellow one before lunch, the blue-striped one after lunch, and the pink one before she comes home from school. You understand all that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
well, I'm
you.
really sorry to have to bring them, and from now on, I'll send them with her brother so I don't interrupt your
that's fine.
class.
Thank you, Mrs. Case.
You're welcome.
You have had some brief instruction into proper management of common medical problems in the classroom. It has been designed to help you deal quickly, correctly, and efficiently with some of these most common problems. It is not by any means a complete first aid course. It will let you feel more confident that you can save lives and prevent further injury when an accident occurs. We've used boys and girls who are not severely and profoundly handicapped for demonstration purposes. You and I both know that some of these techniques that we have shown may be more difficult in reality than in demonstration. Although these have been simulated situations and you have practiced them on a non-injured partner, we hope this will help you overcome some of your fears of these common medical problems in a classroom, whether you are working with severely and profoundly handicapped students or with a non-handicapped population.